Recording in progress.
Mhm.
Good,
Morning.
good morning.
Hey.
Thanks for joining. We have a couple RSVPs, so I'll give it a few minutes and see who pops on.
Yeah. I love the knighthood. I'm so happy to talk about it.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been interesting to kind of look at different ways to kind of structure the class and put some things together and some of the different topics and um, obviously, Pierzia's book on Osiris and chivalry and
Mm.
immortality are things that I want to get into, but there was kind of a few particular things that just kind of struck me as being, important to kind of start with, for people that, the introductory class to kind of give an introduction. And then today, really kind of, if it's the knighthood of purity, I figure we got to start with purification. So that's
Lovely.
kind of the topic today. So yeah.
Mm. I want to be of support. And I did remind everyone that the class was happening. And I hope you have everybody's email address.
Well, I don't have everybody from Regina's group's email. She had sent me the link for that Tuesday class separately, so I went back and looked, and unfortunately, I didn't have everybody's email. But the ones that I do have, I emailed, and then yeah, we can work on that for the next one. And then um, I did, I've been talking with Basira Kathleen Johnson, the head of the
Oh,
Knighthood, and we had a Knighthood Council meeting on Sunday, and so there's a new newsletter going out March 1st, and the newsletter will highlight the class, and
mm.
we're actually going to pitch it to the Inayatiyya as one of the Inayatiyya offerings, because
Great. That would be wonderful.
it's really the only activity that doesn't have its own class. So they're doing music and kinship and some of the other activities, Zerat, but this one doesn't hasn't got that attention yet. So um, Lord willing, we'll offer some of these, at least part of this course, for the broader Inayatiyya organization. So
I've been trying to communicate with Basira Johnson, and I think she's using my old email address. I haven't heard from her. So I hope I get that newsletter. I'll try to contact her again and make sure she's updated mine.
yeah, I can nudge her as well and send it to her. We've been talking a little bit more regularly lately because of this class, and also she has a trip coming up in a month or two, and there's really no backup for her if she is gone and she gets inquiries or she has to send out certificates or any of those types of things. So we've been talking a little bit about me maybe kind of stepping in as kind of a I don't know pseudo co-leader of the knighthood or whatever, but we'll see how all that plays out. But
That sounds great. That's great. I'll keep sending things to my son Michael, and he says he's planning to watch the video. We'll see what happens.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, all in due time. And thank you again for sending me Samuel Ali's information. I did reach out to him, and we've had a little communication back and forth. And I intend to call him this week and get us on a hike over in Topanga. So
Oh, I'm
yeah,
excited about that.
yeah, it'll be great. It's been a long time coming. We really wanted to meet after Saluk, and then just couldn't quite
I
quite a
just think
ring.
you two would be great friends.
Oh yeah, yeah. He and I felt a kinship with him right off the bat during salute. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good, good. I love the idea of you sharing all your special places in Topanga
Yeah,
with.
always searching and discovering new places.
Wow. He'll appreciate them. I know that. Life is hard to negotiate. I quite often picture Pure Valaya, not Pure Valaya, Pure Zia as like our knight, and he's on horseback, and there's like all the Marines on horseback fanned out behind him, like the way birds fly across the sky in V formation um, behind him, being kind of lifted and carried forward. He's got absolute nothing that's going to stop him and taking us with him. And he is our knight. I really see him that
Well, he definitely has a very chivalric nature. You know, he's very refined. You know, I always have always felt that way about him, and just his demeanor and the way he speaks, and just his his aura is very calm and excuse me, very calm and very centered, and yeah, he definitely has a chivalric quality to him for sure.
way. I met him when he was 5 years old,
Oh wow.
and it was at a camp up in Big Bear, and I was in charge of the children's camp, and I had to take him to Taj after the universal worship service that we had for the children. And he was, his energy was just as fine as a 5 year old.
Mm,
It it was amazing. He had a stillness about him, and he did not like harsh sound and the sound of other kids yelling, screaming, crying um, was very disturbing to him.
mm, interesting.
Yeah, he did. He put himself apart um, from all the other little children. Decided to take him by his little hand, walk him to his mom, and I felt like, wow, this was a privilege, knowing he would be the future peer,
Yeah.
and what an extraordinary soul. He just was an extraordinary soul right from the start.
Yeah, I first met him at Regina's house probably 20 years ago. And when he came out here for a private Marids meeting, and Tasneem invited me to come, and yeah, really enjoyed that time. And then obviously got to know him more and been with him more in person over the years. So
Yeah. Um, I've been meaning to say to you, people don't realize that Regina Shelley, you need to say both words and not just call her Regina,
oh,
because it's like saying, hey, Queen. But this is one of the titles conferred on the Blessed Virgin Mary that means celestial queen.
I see.
So you'd say the whole thing, it's Latin, and so it's Regina Shelley.
Oh, I appreciate that
And,
distinction.
and, and, and Shelley is kind of like the heavens. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't know that. Just think to call the team. That was an interesting story because Tatsuin gave her that name,
Mm,
and Regina Shelley was not raised Catholic and felt no particular attachment to the Blessed Virgin Mary because being Protestant, they didn't emphasize Mary in the church at all. And she was just shocked and stunned. And then over time, she discovered this profound connection to Mary.
Mm.
It unfolded, I mean, just absolutely miraculously. So that's kind of the depth and insight of our beloved Jasmine, that she could see so deeply in someone's nature.
Yeah. Well, when she gave me the name Sikander, um, it's Persian for Alexander, and she kind of, in a roundabout way, kind of tied it in with Alexander the Great, as a leader, as a knight, and a warrior type spirit. And so I felt it was fitting for me at that moment, but as time unfolded, and ironically, here I am, really attached to the knighthood and this kind of mentality of the warrior spirit. Um, has been a big theme in my life through martial arts and through other studies and things like that. So yeah, it was very very fitting name. She definitely has a gift for the naming.
Yeah, she has such a fine um, presentation of self. It's so soulful, and she's the reason I'm here
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this art.
Extremely grateful for the connection that we have, and that when I sought out a guide, that she was up the road and that she found me worthy.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's about 10 after. I guess we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll see if anybody else pops in. I know Chantel is going to come in around 9:30 when she finishes her prior commitment, and I had someone from YouTube actually inquired and said that they would like to join the class. So Vicente, we'll see if he shows up today or not. But um, either way, I'm here. We'll do it. So I appreciate you
I'm
coming.
glad to share in it with you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we could start with the invocation. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Amen. All right, let me pull this presentation up here this morning. Switch this over into a full screen. Oh, I lost my zoom window here. One moment. You still with me? Oh, looks like I'm still there. Show meeting. Okay. Um, Not seeing the screen to show up there. Let me see. Give me just one moment. Technical difficulties. I see. Okay. Side by side, we'll do it that way. Let me go back here. I spend all this time preparing and then
Same thing happens to Regina Celli, and I don't even mess with the. I need to learn how to do it all. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, we'll do it like that. All right, let me just expand this a little bit. That's better. Okay, well, today I wanted to kind of really focus on purification, and I have a couple of different elements of purification and some kind of interesting background on the phrase astaghfirullah and how that really plays into a lot of this work. So we'll just dive right into it. So, an essential part of preparing for knighthood is the act of purification. Obviously, we're the knighthood of purity, and the idea is to purify the heart and the mind and the body in a way that makes us fit to serve in the knighthood capacity. So, obviously, there's a couple of different things that we do within Sufism to, uh, to really take on this quality of purification and starting with really one of the most basic practices in our order, which is the elemental breaths, which are also known as the purification breaths. And I found it really interesting. You know I mean, these are an act of purification. They also really create that alchemical change because they're elemental. They're working with the elements, which different elements are what creates an alchemical process. To change iron into copper, copper into silver, silver into gold, you have to change the elemental quality of the metal in order to make that alchemical change. So these could really be called alchemical breaths in the same same sense, especially when applied to the rules and to the knighthood. And then, excuse me. In fact, the word Sufism, tasawwuf, means purification. So it's really interesting that the Sufism. It's said that the word comes from a lot of different things, from the woolen saf that the mystics used to wear, or Sophia, which is the
So,
the wisdom, yeah, and but the term tasawwuf itself means purification. So it's a real essential part of not only knighthood but of the path of Sufism, the mystical path. And I think any path of spirituality, purification has to be a real staple part of it. So as we make this journey towards becoming a knight of purity, obviously the most obvious place to start is purification of the mind, heart, and the channels of the breath and energy within the physical body. So I thought we'd start today's presentation with just doing a quick round of the elemental breaths. I know you're no stranger to these yourself. And today I just, obviously we can do these breaths and then have the color visualization. We can do them, there's so many different variations of how the breaths are done with visualization or without visualization, things like that. So today I just wanted to really kind of focus on the breath themselves, really focusing on the breath. I didn't want to give people too much things that they have to attach their mind to, but really just focusing on the breath. So we'll just take a few moments and go through the 5 breaths. So beginning with the earth breath, which is in through the nose and out through the nose 5 times. Breathing in the energy of the earth, letting it rise up from the soles of the feet. Really feeling that grounding presence. Each out breath really strengthening that grounding quality in the aura, in the biofield around the body. And then resting in that grounded feeling for a moment, we switch to the water breath, which is in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feeling that wellspring of joy and peace rise up through the in-breath. And that cascading flow of peace and wellness, clarity, cleansing that flows down over us and through us on the out-breath. And then from that feeling of the cleansed heart, body and mind, we step into the fire breath, which is in through the mouth and out through the nose. Feeling the warmth and the heat rising up through the in-breath, burning away all the impurities of the heart, of the mind, of the body. Breathing out, feeling that warm glow surround us. And resting in this warmth for a moment, we switch to the air breath, which is in through the mouth and out through the mouth. Feeling this calm, cooling sensation, this wispy, zigzag energy that swirls in and around us, blowing away the impurities, scattering away any doubts. Carrying this purified breath on the out breath to our atmosphere and our surroundings. And then with that clarity and that lightness that we feel from the air breath, we step into the ether breath, which is a very subtle feeling, a very subtle breath in through the nose and out through the nose. A breath that's very synonymous with refinement. Really connecting with that refinement of the spirit, of the soul, of the heart, the mind, and the overall purification of the body. Amen. So these breaths can be done at any time of day, at any moment. These are typically given as a practice when one first comes to the path of initiation, and are really recommended to kind of ground and center, cleanse, purify. And in this sense, I think when one's working with the rules, I think taking a moment to do these breaths before contemplating the first rule of the day can be very opening, because they get us into this mindset of purity and purification, which again is the goal of the knighthood of purity, is to be a knight of purity and to live that essence of purity. So starting with purity before even and really focusing and directing the mind and the heart on purity before stepping into a contemplative mode and taking on that task of working with the rule, the service that rule brings. I think is just a great way to start, really starting with that purification. So that's working with the breaths. And then, in the Sufi tradition, there's a very strong emphasis on viewing the heart as a mirror, and the mirror reflecting that inner condition of the individual. The heart really, therefore, is seen as a divine mirror designed to reflect infinite light. But this mirror accumulates rust, or what I think it's Persian or Arabic. It's called ran, or black spots that form over this mirror of the heart from the ego, from vanity, forgetfulness, sins, and mistakes. And this leads to a heaviness. It leads to blocked intuition, muddy or clouded aura. And all of this really attracts more chaos into our lives, which we want to avoid. So from this point of view, one must work really hard to polish the mirror of the heart daily to remove this rust that settles over it. And the great Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi referred to this phenomenon as the mirror in a sandstorm, where you're functioning biologically but spiritually petrified. So it's a really vivid way to describe a common spiritual tragedy. A person who appears fully alive and operational on the surface is inwardly deadened or blocked from their divine perception and their true aliveness. So in short, the person is alive, like a dusty mirror is still a mirror, but useless for its true purpose of reflecting divine light. So they function on autopilot in this physical world while inwardly petrified and cut off from their spiritual vitality, their radiance, their magnetic baraka or blessing. So this is why relentless istighfar, which is the seeking forgiveness as a polishing vibration, becomes essential. It's kind of a daily wipe that keeps that mirror clean amid that ongoing sandstorm of life. Kind of similarly, to tie in a little biblical element of that, is the story of Jonah in the belly of the whale, kind of illustrating the human condition. Through some poor choices that Jonah makes, he finds himself enshrouded in 3 layers of darkness: the darkness of the night, the darkness of the ocean, and the darkness of the whale's belly. And this really symbolizes the suffocation and isolation due to one's own choices and ego, which in modern times can really equate to stress, social media envy, other daily distractions that settle on the mirror's dust and create another layer of darkness over our inner light. So as Jonah realized his situation and that it was a result of his own mistakes, he cries out to his Lord. And from this vibration of crying out for forgiveness, he's thus shot out of the whale's mouth. So another kind of elemental thought there for kind of what's to come in the next practice here. So thinking of some ways that we can work to polish the heart and remove the rust. There are obviously many methods. And we just did the purification breaths, which obviously is a really foundational and fundamental way of creating purification, polishing the heart. There's different zikr practices, like the zikr of the broom, where you do this sweeping motion across the heart to kind of cleanse the chambers of the heart, the different lataif of the heart. But one that really struck me in relation to knighthood, and particularly stood out because it has some significant roots tied to the concepts of chivalry and embodying the knighthood, is the practice of reciting the word astaghfirullah. And most use this term astaghfirullah as an apologetic call for forgiveness. And, although it is the proper way to work with the term and it does have that meaning, it also carries a much deeper etymology that breaks down into something much beyond just the act of asking for forgiveness. The term comes from the root gfar. Chantel is here. Let me let her in. Grand Rising, Chantel. Thank you for joining us. So we just did the purification breaths. Today our topic is on purity. Obviously being the knighthood of purity and working towards being a knight of purity, we want to work on purification of ourself and our character and things like that. So we started off with the purification breaths. So you didn't miss much there. I'm sure you're familiar with those. And we're just getting into talking about clearing the mirror of the heart, as the heart gets these kind of rust or dust deposits over it over time through different various things in the world that create stress and strain and ego gratification and all that. So we want to polish that mirror of the heart to really bring in that resilient beauty and that divine nature and reflection of who we truly are. So we're just getting into that. So I was mentioning the connection of the word astaghfirullah. And astaghfirullah is used really as an apologetic call. It's asking God for forgiveness. But it has a etymological root. So meaning that the word itself is rooted in a couple of different things which really tie to a knight's life and livelihood in a way. So the root comes from gfar, gfar, astaghfirullah, gfar, which means much more than just to forgive, as it's often interpreted to mean. The original desert meaning of the deserts of the mystics of the desert is to cover or to veil or shield or protect. So it has that shield and that protection, that veiling. It's covering one in forgiveness, covering one in mercy, covering one in this divinity. And from the same root comes the word migfar, and the migfar is the chainmail helmet that's worn by warriors to shield their head from arrows and swords. So you can see on the right there the image of the migfar, which is the chainmail that's worn underneath the helmet. So anything that pierces through, it kind of stops the arrows or the sword blade from getting too much further and causing any damage. So this migfar, Istafrullah, is really tied into this term migfar, which again tied to the cover, the shield, bless you, the protection, the veil, the shield, the covering, and then the migfar being that covering of the chainmail worn by the knight to really create that protection. And I'll also add in here on one of my Sufi retreats, I don't remember, sadly, I don't remember exactly who told me this or said this to me, but maybe it was Wadud. Anyway, I did a retreat several years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. And in one of my retreats, I was given this word to do as a practice. And was given the ideology that it was asking for forgiveness, but I was told to think of the phrase as meaning "forgive me for being human," which is to say, to forgive me for forgetting my pure divinity. And that really struck me, because we're all human and we can't help but be human. And even a knight out there, as valiant as they are on the field of battle, they're still human. They still have a conscience and a soul and a mind that they have to carry through this battle. So I found that to be a really interesting way of looking at Astaghfirullah, is to forgive me for being human, or for forgetting my own pure divinity. So reframing this saying Astaghfirullah as not just a passive apology or begging for pity, it's energetically putting on the helmet, shield, or armor. It's putting on a migfar of light. It requests the divine name Al-Ghafar. So again, migfar, Astaghfirullah, Al-Ghafar is the divine name meaning the all-covering. So to veil the mistakes, to neutralize consequences, and to ultimately patch holes in our aura is really another way of looking at this Astaghfirullah as a migfar of light. The sonic and visual, physiological mechanics of it, there is a lot in the word itself. So a lot of times when we work with these, divine names, we work with the 99 names. It's not just the meaning of the name. We could call out to the all covering. We could call out to the all pervading. We could call out to the most the kind, the healer. We could use natural English terms or whatever language term, but there's something in the context of the sound that comes from these original words, from the Arabic or the Persian versions of these words, that really have an alchemical process to them as well. They really bring out a quality in our body physically as we say them. So this, the Astaghfirullah has a very sharp intake. It's got a cutting sword like quality to it that really comes with the commitment of that practice. The guttural gh, so astagh, it's kind of a almost astaghfirullah. You don't have to really do it quite that pronounced, but that guttural vibration is a throat chest cleansing. You can feel that. So again, it's shaking the loose the rust. It's clearing that heart chakra stagnation, the throat chakra as well. So as you're doing that, astaghfirullah, it really moves through the throat down into the heart, really clearing and shaking loose, things that are in there. So I find that it really it really breaks apart a lot in the throat chakra and really opens one's ability to really speak from a place of purity, and then that really opens the heart to that purification as well. And then on the exhale, this astaghfirullah is exhaling Allah, and this expels darkness. And just like CO2, when we're breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide, this filters that. It's an energetic filter, when you stay astaghfirullah, and it creates that alchemical process of that cleansing through that process. The alchemical outcome here is not just a cleaning, but it transmutes this rust into diamond clarity. So that really makes the heart become a conduit of light, or a magnet for baraka. So baraka meaning blessing. So we want the blessings. We do these practices not just because we want to refine our heart or our spirit or our mind, or because we want to do something fun and interesting and become knights and be able to walk around and say we're knights. We really want the blessing that comes from the practice. We want to receive that divine light, that divine guidance. We really want that divine essence and spirit to come through us and to be part of what we are and our being. So, receiving baraka, I think, is a very important part of approaching these rules that we work with. And I'm most likely our next session is going to be about baraka and blessing, and then also risk, RISQ, which is, has a lot to do with your provisions in life, your wealth, your abundance, things of that nature, because all of this process of clearing away and cleansing and purifying makes way for a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of divinity, a wealth of spirit to come through. And you live a more abundant life when you have those qualities within you. And all of those are a blessing. So we'll talk more in probably the next class about how the rules really work towards our risk and our baraka. So relating all this to Inayat Khan's knighthood, and the 40 rules and the different 4 metallic degrees contemplated, 10 each over 40 days, and this full 1600 days that we do this process for knighthood, it builds an ethical and spiritual chivalry, futua, as we know, and each degree refines the knight. So starting with the iron rules create endurance. It's a foundational, practice. These first 10 rules really create that endurance and that ability to stand on our own 2 feet and to really be grounded and present in this act of purification and working towards a greater level of transformation. And then the copper brings about harmony. This is when we start to harmonize with the practice. We start to harmonize with the concepts of these rules and with what they're really doing. We start to feel a certain tone within us that has changed because we're starting to harmonize with these elements. And then silver brings a sense of illumination. At this stage, we're starting to feel a little bit more illuminated. We're starting to understand more how our life and the things that we say and the things that we do and the way that we treat others and the way that we approach our problems in life and the way that we approach this alchemical transformation in this process of change really illuminates us and creates this shield of light that we can carry through life. So silver brings that illumination, and then the golden rules really bring this divine magnetism. So we want to open to this divinity, and that is the true baraka, is this divine magnetism when you can draw in more divinity, more light, more peace, more abundance, more prosperity, more of this wealth of spirit. And this is really what the golden rules unlock, or the metal element of it. So to tie in Astaghfirullah, it's a daily polishing cloth that keeps the mirror clean so the knight can authentically live the rules. So when you do this practice of Astaghfirullah, it really kind of gives you that element. And then just kind of opening up a little further integration of this with the rules. The iron rules, again, are foundational as well. They kind of really bring about that discipline against the basic rust, like pride and anger. And the istighfar, which is the act of asking for forgiveness, forges an armor of raw endurance. So through the iron rules, these foundational rules, we build that discipline against the basic rust, and we open to that istighfar of forging that armor of raw endurance. As we kind of move into the copper rules, these are more refined, so they bring an element of refinement, and this gives us a balance outward. It gives us a balance and an outward forgiveness. We're forgiving others for the way they speak to us, for the way that they, carry out their own elements in life and things like that. And we're also forgiving ourselves for the way that we interact with others and the way that we carry ourselves in daily life. And again, then that istighfar prevents that tarnish that comes from envy or gossip. So a lot of times it's easy to fall into these traps of being envious of others, especially in this age of social media. People post, their best elements of their life and don't show any of the negative stuff. They always show the positive. And sometimes you can look at somebody and say, man, how do they have it all going so good for themselves, or things like that. It's easy to fall into that envy, and that becomes, again, a layer of rust over the heart that needs to be washed away and becomes a tarnish. And gossip as well. Gossip it's easy to talk about others, or someone brings up a negative thing about somebody at work, or you get into, and he talks about politics these days. It's easy to really start running amok with talking someone down. But this process of istighfar really prevents the tarnish from coming over the heart, because you're working to not feel these feelings of envy or to step into gossip. And then also with the copper rules, it shields at the same time that it's extending mercy. So through these copper rules, we're starting to really build that shield of light. We're really shielding ourselves from some of these things that can come and create this rust over the heart, but we're also extending our mercy by the act of polishing and by the very process of cleansing our soul and illuminating that light within us. So then that brings us to the silver rules, which are really all about illumination. These really help create a detachment and help us to detach a little bit from ourselves and to see the bigger picture and the broader spectrum of what we fit into in life, and then also seeing the divinity in all people. So now with this illumination, you can start to see the good in others, even in your worst enemy or someone that you don't get along with, you're at this process where your spirit is refined enough now to where you can really find some thread of something that you like in that other person that you might not get on with very well. But this is really starting to see the divinity in all. And then again with the Istifar, this practice of forgiveness unveils the kashf, which is an unveiling. It's a disclosure or uncovering. So we've created this cover of light and this, shield and this veil and this protection with the Astaghfirullah, but it also unveils at the same time. So it's one of those great Sufi paradoxes where, things have dual meaning. You want to create this shield of light, you want to create this covering of protection, but you also want to unveil and disclose your true divinity and your divine light, and you want to uncover the element within yourself that is pure. So you're using light as purity to cover, and you're using light as purity to unfold, and you're using this through this process of purification and forgiveness. And then what this does, also is it makes the aura kind of like Teflon to negativity. It's this coating. It's this protective coating that really protects your aura, your biofield around your body, your electromagnetic field, to where things don't really penetrate like they used to. They don't bother you like they used to. They don't come in and really, stab the ego, or get into this negative thing where someone says something and it really gets to you and it bothers you for some time, and you sit with it and it changes your vibe for a while. This process of this Istighfar really kind of creates that protective coating over you, and so that's a quality of the silver. And then with the golden rules, again, this, when you think of gold, you think of this luminous, perfected state, because we've gone from iron and from foundation to refinement to illumination, and then moving on to perfection. So this really comes with surrender. At this point, you've surrendered to a divine essence of yourself. You've surrendered to the elements. You've surrendered to the different qualities of the names, and you're starting to become a vessel. You've cleaned away, and you've emptied the cup, and you've made space for more divine light to pour in, or to pour through, or pour out from you. And Istighfar creates that vacuum for divine influx. So, we're calling out for forgiveness, but that feeling and that essence of forgiveness, brings that divine influx back in. So it's like a vacuum. We're cleansing and pushing out the old and the impure, and we're drawing in the purity and the light and the elements that really bring us that divine satisfaction. And the heart becomes a superconductor at that point of barakah. So this is where, once we're at that level of working with the golden rules, we're really opening the heart to such a level that it is a superconductor, and it draws in these blessings and this abundant wealth of knowledge and divinity and blessing that just pours over our lives and makes us much more firm in who we are. So one practice that might be done with this, or one way to work with this, polishing the heart and invoking a helmet of light. So kind of put together this practice of kind of thinking in terms of that a shield of light, or the helmet of light, or that migfar, through this practice here. So taking about 5 minutes or so, you could take up this practice of Istighfar. You could do it longer, if it's something that calls to you, or something that feels, right, you have time. Typically with Astaghfirullah, you would do it about 70 to 100 times. You would recite the word, so that may take a little more than 5 minutes, but even 5 minutes is enough to really step into that state of, asking for forgiveness, and really being in a state of mind and a state of heart where you're opening to that quality. So silently or aloud. Again, you can do it silently. As I mentioned, there is this alchemical quality to actually stating the word and saying it out loud, and that vibration that it creates really opens something in. But silently or aloud, you could recite the word Astaghfirullah while imagining that you are gently polishing the heart. So you can think of almost like a polishing cloth of light, if you want to visualize it as light, or even just a clear white pristine cloth, and as you say astaghfirullah, 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 really thinking of this heart polishing motion, like you're really rubbing this cloth of purity, this clear white cloth, and or this pure cloth of light over your heart, gently polishing the heart. And then doing this with full awareness of the breath. As you're doing it, not getting too hung up on the thought of the breath, but really seeing as astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, the breath, the way that the power comes through with that word and the way that you say it. The breath also has a cleansing and a sweeping, when you think of wind blowing through, or, a leaf blower outside that's blowing away all the debris. The word and the way that you do the word and the way that you breathe it really has that kind of same blowing, brushing type element to it. So really focusing a little bit on that breath, or again, being aware of the breath and the heart and the vibration of the word when you're doing it. And then you can have this visualization. If you're a more visual person, you can really visualize this rust dissolving and the black spots that are being covered now by this helmet of light, or this shield of light. You can think of it as a helmet, a shield, and these three darkness layers that we spoke about with Jonah, being lifted. Jonah, when he was in the belly of the whale, was covered by three darknesses: the darkness of the night, the darkness of the ocean, and the darkness of the belly of the whale. So we want to peel back these layers of darkness that we have over the heart, these layers of rust and things like that. And, sometimes when you have a lot of dust or dirt on something, you wash your car, you might have to wash it 2 or 3 times because you got all these layers of dirt. First you got the mud and the things, and you wash that away, and then you've got the fine dust, and you get all that off, and then you've still got water spots and things. So you can kind of think of it in the same way. You have these several layers of darkness over the heart that we have to really work away. And then through this visualization, really stepping into the affirmation, so affirming. So we visualize, and then we affirm. And the phrase Astaghfirullah al-Azim wa atubu ilah is, I seek forgiveness from Allah, the Magnificent, and I turn to Him in repentance. So this is kind of an affirmation statement, and you could say this silently, or you could say it out loud after the practice. But again, it's really seeking forgiveness. It's this quest for forgiveness. In knighthood, you're always on a quest, right? So this is our quest for forgiveness from God, and recognizing the magnificence of that forgiveness that comes from Allah, and then you turn to Him in repentance. So it's an act of turning and repenting and clearing and cleansing. And then this affirmation of your process acts as a scouring pad for the soul. So now we're really getting in, and we're really scouring. We're really getting into the polishing and the refinement. So we've cleared away some dust, we've cleared away some darkness, and now we can kind of see a little bit of shine. And really going through this process of asking for this forgiveness really creates that scouring that really starts to make the armor shine. This scouring or polishing affirms your desire for clarity of the heart and your purity of consciousness. So Astaghfirullah alazim wa atabu ilayah. Um, and I may not have pronounced that totally perfectly, but whichever way it kind of flows for you is fine. And then at the end of the practice, you would just reflect. You would take a few minutes to reflect on the process and kind of take a moment and ask yourself what rust felt heavy on your heart before you began. You know, are you carrying something that's some sort of darkness or some sort of ego spot or some sort of um, daily trauma or stress that you're carrying with you? You know, look at that as rust over the heart and something that you're working to polish away. And and this can be a practice too that's really done just to help with some of those daily things that you're dealing with. You know, when you react to something, you know, being reactive in itself is something to be, uh, to seek forgiveness for. You know, and I think with these rules in particular, most of these rules are how we change the way that we react to the world and to circumstances and to things that are out there that challenge us. And so um, you can do this, you know, just even just you know, something happens and you know somebody says something and you react in a way that, you know, somebody cuts you off and you know, flip them the finger or whatever and you drive away and you know, ah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, I shouldn't have done that. That just that little act of recognizing it and catching it and then asking for forgiveness can really have a profound effect, and take that heaviness and that weight away from you. And then ask yourself, how does this new shield of light feel now? So you went into the practice, you know, carrying this rust or this heaviness or this burden. How do you feel after you do it? After you say astaghfirullah, what does it do for you? Um, and I think it's good to recognize, you know, I think with any practice, I think it's good to take a moment afterwards and reflect and look at what was my condition like when I walked into this practice, and what's my condition like now that I did it, and really take stock of it, because this helps us really understand and decide what practices are effective for us and which ones aren't. You know, there's some practices that we've been prescribed or given over the years that just don't seem to really do anything, you know. And maybe over time we recognize what they've done, but there's some that really profoundly in that moment, like, wow, that really did it. But taking that moment to ask yourself what felt heavy, and then how you feel now that you have this shield of light, and then close the practice kind of visualizing your heart mirror as a highly polished and reflective surface. You know, seeing that, you know, the mirror of the heart is polished and gleaming and radiating light and attracting blessing. So having that moment to just see that that outcome from the process. So we can take a few moments and we can do this. I know that we're kind of at our time here, and I have a few more things that I want to dive into here, but I'll send this material out, and you guys can take time to do this practice and to kind of walk through it and see. But yeah, we'll just take 1 minute and silently close our eyes for a moment, and we'll just think about if there's any rust or heaviness that you're feeling or anything that's there, and you know, just silently say astaghfirullah and really visualize that polishing. And then just take a moment and reflect on what your reflection looks like now. I know for myself, just even a minute of polishing seemed to kind of lighten the feeling in the heart. Uh, so yeah, just a moment on that reflection. I mean, so yeah, throughout the week, or I guess we have a month before our next meeting here. So you can take time to really work with that practice of polishing the heart and invoking the helmet of light. And feel free to change this around a little bit. Like I said, if visualizing a helmet of light is feels better than a shield of light, or even just the mirror, just thinking of the heart as a mirror and not even dropping the whole helmet and the shield thing. Whatever really feels right for you, but work with this astaghfirullah at least a couple times over the next month and see what it does for you. And again, I think that um, starting with the purification breaths, and then maybe a few minutes of astaghfirullah, and then take up the contemplation of your rule for the day, creates that purification. It purifies and it cleanses, and it gets you in a state of being, in a state of mind where you might see that rule a little differently. It might open up more for you. Um, you know, it's easy to just get up in the morning and open the app and my conscientious self have prejudice against no one. Okay, okay, I'm going to do that throughout the day, and then click the button and you're on to the next day. And but really taking the time to create that purification and that space for the rule before you even look at it, and then asking for this divine forgiveness and this divine clearing and cleansing away of any impurity that might be there in the way of you seeing this rule for what it really is a great way to step into the contemplation and the practice for the day. So integrating this astaghfirullah, this class really was about integrating the metaphysical teachings on astaghfirullah from Sheikh al-Akbar, the greatest Sheikh, Ibn Arabi, and kind of putting that in with the Knighthood of Purity framework laid out by the 40 rules. It positions istighfar as the knight's primary weapon or tool for polishing the heart mirror and for forging that spiritual armor of the migfar, the helmet, the shield, and progressing through the different chivalric degrees. So let astaghfirullah be your helmet for your spirit, the call that shatters the belly of the whale. So you have the tool, and the only variable is, will you use it? So some things to contemplate and practice over the next few weeks. Consider utilizing this lesson and integrating it into your daily routine, as I mentioned, as a sort of polishing cloth for maintaining a clear aura, a heart cleaning, and a highly protective armor of light. As you work with the rules, ask yourself which ones call out to you as areas that need a little extra rub in order to clear that deep impression or those black spots. I know some of these rules really take us to task, and they really are challenging and difficult because they challenge your ability to be of service to others in the most meaningful way. Because some of these things, really point out what blocks us. It's hard. Some of these are difficult to do. So having a few moments to kind of look at which ones of these have really caused that need for a little extra polishing, a little extra rub to work those things out, and then revisit or approach any rules that you might need to approach again, and simply state astaghfirullah before contemplating that rule again. And just take a deep breath before you begin working with the rule to reintegrate its reflection of the divine quality in your heart. So these are just some contemplations and practices that can be done working with these over the next few weeks. And then again, just for convenience sake, I kind of laid these rules in here for the iron rules, the copper rules, and some of the same resources and things we had from the last class. I'll keep these in the deck, so they're just a continual source and reminder. But just kind of in closing here, I'm going to take a few moments to just kind of peruse over some of these rules and some of these that might be part of that act of forgiveness or that act of purification. So since we're really talking about purifying and purification here, kind of scanning through the iron rules, starting with the very first one, make no false claims. A false claim can be a spot, right? It can be a dark spot created by the ego. It can be a rust. You say something and it's an impurity that rests over the heart. So making no false claims wipes away that impurity. It wipes away that distruth. We talked about the envy and the gossip. So, not speaking about someone in their absence. Let's see. Do not spare yourself in the work which you must accomplish. I think that's an important one too, and to render your services faithfully to all who require them. Not doing those things can be a form of rust as well. That can be a dust that accumulates over the heart because you're not actually letting the purity of the heart shine through. You're not letting your true nature and your true divinity come through because you're not rendering your services faithfully to others, or you're, not doing the work that you know you want to do or that you should do because there's an excuse. I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't want to make my bowl of sake video today, it's late and I don't have time, and but it's an act of service. It's something that I do because I know that somewhere somebody's going to click on it and say, this really touched my heart today. So you have to kind of not spare yourself in that work which you must do. Copper rules, considering your responsibility sacred, the very first one. Again, looking at that sacredness of the heart, the purity of the heart, and things like that. We want to bring in more of this sacredness into our life, and we want to bring more sacredness out of ourselves into the world. So let's see. Proving trustworthy in all your dealings is a good one as well. Again, when you're asking for forgiveness, were you trustworthy in your interactions or the way that you handled things in your daily life? Proving trustworthy definitely has a purificational quality to it. Trust is, a purity of spirit that comes through. So you want to be trustworthy in all your dealings. Silver rules. What's another good one here for purification? Well, meet your shortcomings with a sword of self-respect. That's really what you're doing through this istighfar practice. You're meeting your shortcomings with a sword of respect. You're coming to yourself and saying, "What can I do to cut through these shortcomings and these feelings?" And so, this act of polishing, this act of clearing, and this act of asking for forgiveness, it steps to your shortcomings. You're not saying I'm perfect, I'm pure. You're saying I have shortcomings, and I need to meet them with the sword of self-respect. I need to find a way to cut through those so that I can really see the brighter, essence of myself and the true essence of my spirit. So I think that's a beautiful one. There was a couple in the golden rules. Guarding the secrets of friends as your most sacred trust. that's an act of purification and purity. You're being a pure friend to another person, and really guarding their secrets as a sacred trust. And anything that you do as a sacred trust is an act of purification. It's something that you're doing it from a pure heart, from a pure mind, a pure place, pure intention. So I think that's a really good one. Break not your word of honor, whatever may befall. So no matter what comes, again, this is, conditions come to us in different ways, and it's easy to, oh, I said I was going to do this, but I can't do it today. Or, I, I said I wasn't going to talk about that person, but they really made me mad. I'm going to talk about them. Whatever comes your way, don't break your word. Stay with your word of honor, and that's an act of purification as well. That's an act of really cleansing. It's pushing away that impulse or that desire to break your word or to act against what you know is the right thing to do. So again, that can be an act of purification. And then uphold your honor at any cost. So again, this is upholding your honor takes a purity of mind. It takes a purity of heart, a purity of your intentions, your will. It takes a pure, strong will to uphold your honor at all costs. Because again, we do have a lot of things in our daily life that knock us off of our path and create issues and difficulties for us. So upholding your honor at any cost can be an act of purification as well. So yeah, you can kind of go through these and take a look at them and see which ones kind of jump out to you as acts of purification, or as things that align with asking for forgiveness, or that might create that spirit of forgiveness in your heart, and might be a contemplation that really does an extra polishing for you. So it's just another way of looking at these rules. We see them as words, and we see them as rules. These are my rules that I have to follow, the rules of life, the rules of the spirit, and things like that. But they can really be seen from so many different angles and so many different perspectives. So really taking a look at these as from the perspective of purification and also of forgiveness, I think you can see these in a much different light. So yeah, with that said, I appreciate everyone joining this morning, and if you have any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to share, we can take a few moments and go through those, and then I'll send this deck over to everyone, and then we will, inshallah, see everyone on the next session.
Hi, Sikander. Chantal.
Hello.
Thank you very much for this. This is really wonderful. I have two questions. One's a practical question around dates and timing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a schedule in terms of the Saturday, like is it third Saturdays, and are you going to keep the same time, the 9 to 10 Pacific Standard?
I'm really open and flexible. I know with your schedule, 9:30 works better. We could bump it a half an hour back. I'm not married to the time or anything. Right now, it's been the third Saturday of every month, just because that was the best time for me to start in January, was the third Saturday, and I'm very open. As I was mentioning to Basira at the beginning, I've actually, been talking with we had a Knighthood Council meeting on Sunday, and they're going to be announcing this class in the newsletter that goes out to everybody that's involved with the Knighthood of Purity on March 1st. I do anticipate we're going to start getting a lot more people coming, a lot more involvement, larger groups coming in, and there might be some international folks and things like that over the next few months. So quite sure there's going to be a need to kind of be flexible with the time and dates and things like that. So, yeah, any suggestions that you have or anything that works better, feel free to let me know some times and days that might work better, and I'm flexible. So,
Well, I think Saturdays is great. If you can change to 9:30, even for the time being until more people come, that would be super helpful for me so that I could attend the whole experience. And with that said, because you're recording, I can also, just watch it, and that's fine too. So I too am open. I'm just checking in and seeing what's possible so I can get something on my calendar.
no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's a new class. This is only the second session so far, so yeah, there's definitely space to move things around. So
Okay.
appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you again. This is great. I'll look forward to the deck. And the other question that I had is, so when you talked about doing the sort of sealing of the forgiveness, where you're actually reaching out to Allah, and um, I'm having a hard time with the Abrahamic religions, and I know that this is not religion per se, and I'm wondering if to modify it, the language, so that the language for me is more palatable, to just maybe even say, divine source, which to me encompasses all of it. Do you have any comments or thoughts about that?
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that's, when I put this particular presentation together today, I was thinking of some friends from Ohio that said they were going to attend and didn't show up, but a lot of people. You bring up a great point, because everyone has their own little dispensation, whatever that word I'm trying to say there, dispensation towards certain religions, and some people really can align with some, and some can't. And I know that I grew up in a very strict Christian home, and my life was very much in those it had that very narrow look, and it was very strict, and they very much looked down upon other people of different religions. That was just the environment that I was raised in, and not necessarily my parents, but the church and the whole, and my dad was church choir director, so we were very very much a part of the church. And so if we never would have seen a Buddhist walking down the street in Ohio back in 30, 40 years ago. But had we seen one, that poor man, he's going to hell because he doesn't know Jesus, right? So like I always struggled with that, and some things happened in my experience where a lot of these people in the Christian faith had. And I'm going on a longer tangent here to answer your question, but just wanted to give you a little relevance. So my experience was a lot of these people that forced me into a certain belief or a certain ideology were lying and doing things that were wrong, and a lot of the things that they were doing were totally contradictory to what the imposition was upon me. So I lived this very sheltered, very closed off life where I couldn't break out of this or break out of that, or I couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And all these people that are telling me that are out doing those things. So it made me really question my religion, to the point where I had a hard time even talking. I have such a deep love for God, but I had trouble saying how much I love God. And even using the word God was an issue for me for a while, because I didn't want people to tie it back to Christianity and to think that I was a holy roller or some Jesus freak, or that, and it took me many years to work through all that and to be at peace with that, that faith, and to really embrace that as part of my upbringing and part of my spiritual process. And then when I first discovered the teachings of Murshid, I was in a band at the time, and the I was sitting down and I was reading this book, and one of my bandmates, hey, what are you reading? And this was just a few years after 9/11, and she says, she says, how do you feel about that being tied in with Islam? And I was like, this has nothing to do with Islam. What are you talking about? And my ignorance at the time, I didn't realize that, Murshid grew up in a Muslim family, and that Sufism was part of, the inner heart of Islam, and all these types of things. So, I think I think there's a real importance to that, that it doesn't have to be strictly, terminology that really speaks to Islam or Christianity or Judaism or any of the the major religions. Whatever calls to your heart is really what it is. There's the divine spark is the divine spark, and it's all one. And one of the things that I really love so much about the Sufi path, and I think why it's stuck with me so much, is because even though it's often and I think mistakenly called Islamic mysticism, it's mysticism. And if you look up mysticism, which I think I actually have somewhere here, I gave my mom this book, and she looked up the mysticism of sound and music, and I let her read it because I wanted her to know what struck me so much about this, so she didn't worry about my soul and think I was going to hell. And she put a little sticky note on the inside that I still have here because she looked up mysticism. And mysticism means the spiritual discipline of communion with God. So to be a mystic is really just having your own communion with God in whatever voice, whatever spirit, whatever name you want to call it. That's absolutely 100% okay. So yeah, I think that you bring up a great point, and it is some of the things that I struggle with sometimes in sharing Sufism and talking so boldly about Sufism in public forums and online and things like that. The teachings themselves, I have no issues with, and Murshid in particular, our particular branch of Sufism and the Inayatiyya and this Western Sufism is much different than a lot of the traditional Sufism that you're going to find in Pakistan or Afghanistan or even like Morocco and some of these other places where it really flourished and grew, because that was Murshid's mission, was to unite East and West. And so he came here to speak in his own musical language. He was a master musician. He came here to do music. He came to the West to perform, and it just so happened that he started giving these lectures and teachings and sharing these things, and it became the spark that lit a big fuse, and it ignited something in him to where he saw, this is how my music can unite East and West, is to put my music into these teachings and to step away from the performance and the the artistry of it, and to really put things into terms that people can resonate with, that people can harmonize with, that people can find this tone of the tone that I'm giving off. So again, speaking in musical terms, that's really what Murshid's teachings are about. So I think the Inayatiyya as an order, as an organization, does a pretty good job of really upholding that spirit and really embracing that in a way that that doesn't push anybody into having to give praise to Allah, or and Allah is just just another name for God. It's another term for God. But again, it's all one. It's all connected. It's no different. But we've been raised and conditioned and put into situations in life where obviously there are some distinctions and differences, and that's why we say in one of our prayers, or a couple of our prayers, raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide us, because we don't want to see any distinction. We don't want to see any difference. We want to just see God. We just want light. We want divinity, and we want it to pour over us in blessing and any way that we see it. So I wholeheartedly, urge you to use whatever terminology works well for you. And yeah, as I teach and grow as a guide and teacher, these are challenges that I'm looking at too. Is how to really express these things in a way that speaks to a larger, broader audience and doesn't narrow things down to where people think this is just Islam or this is just um, you know uh,
Yeah.
Islamic mysticism or whatever the case may be. So
I love that. Thank you. That's really helpful. I love the definition of mystical or mysticism. That was wonderful. And I do believe that if you take a strand from every religion, therein lies the truth. And I really love the word that we're using for cleansing and purifying. And I can find a solution for the sealing of that, So I thank you for giving me that, because it just then feels more in alignment with my heart.
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have to go soon, Sikander, but
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to Chantel
Yeah, please
as
do.
well as thank you for the magnificent class. I just loved it, and I feel like your series of classes maybe should be available in the Inayatiyya website, and that they would be very valuable to anyone that undertakes the knighthood of purity concentration. It was wonderful.
Thank
Now,
you.
to respond to Chantal, when I first found the Sufi path, I found myself particularly upset saying Allah. I just had this leftover creepy feeling from being raised Catholic that just kind of, this was too foreign for me. And it took me a long time to develop trust for using it. And then as I would be given practices to do, I really didn't like doing them in Arabic. And Murshid says that if a student doesn't like the Arabic, does not relate to the Arabic, they can translate things into the phrase that the Arabic represents and repeat it that way. The benefit to saying it in Arabic is that it's such an ancient language. The sound of each of the words is deeply connected to a divine understanding of the meaning. And so it sets up a resonance and a vibration in your body using the Arabic words. And it's the same thing with Sanskrit or any of the other ancient languages. They're much more connected to the deepest meaning of the word. So we use those because of the resonance, and also because some of these chants have been going on for thousands of years. And we join into the resonance of something that just exists, pulsing through the universe. These divine phrases have been set in motion, and we join into them, and we're empowered by the group effect of all these sacred repetitions. So there's a lot to that, but things that are spoken in English are still very heartfelt. And if that resonates best for you, do it however it feels the best.
Thank you so much. There is wisdom. These are all wisdom teachers in the Abrahamic religions and other philosophies and beliefs. And so I honor that. I do honor that. And I'm in a state of exploring my own religiosity, and so I can get behind all of the ideology, the ideas, right? The concepts, conceptual. And I love and agree very much with you about this idea of speaking, like the asking for forgiveness and the purifying of the heart, in a language that has been repeated for millennia, right? Because of the morphic resonance with inherent in that, right? So thank you. This is just wonderful food for thought. It's an opportunity for me to look at my own resistance. What do I really mean by even the question? And does it really matter? And if it does, then how can I, as I said, align it in a way that feels good to me? So I really appreciate your gentle, open, heart-centered share. It's really welcoming, and thank you.
Reading the Daily Bowl of Sake for years and years and years with the commentary, I don't know if you've been exposed to that, but we're shifting from a Western cultural way of holding things into a more Eastern ground of being in how God has been related to, that requires understanding things and making a shift. And that doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It is something that is acquired by exposure that grows. And seeing what Hazrat Inayat Khan has to say helped me. Reading it every day for maybe 10 years. After about 10 years of reading it every day, I didn't have resistance to any terminology anymore because the underpinnings of it had been revealed through looking at all the things that he says. So if you have an opportunity to do that, the Daily Bowl of Sake, you read the same saying every day for a year, and then you repeat it the next year, and you repeat it the next year. And what happens is you change over the course of a year, and the way you understand it the next year you read it is deeper, more profound, and it just keeps getting that profound until you really reach a deeper level of translation in what the terms are that he's talking about.
Thank you. And thank you, Sikander, for posting that. I picked it up and I'll check into that. And so, again, just on this wonderful journey as a seeker, and staying as open as possible. So really appreciate the feedback. And the information.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And with the link that I just sent you, wahidudin.net is a really great resource. All of Murshid's teachings are on there. So every teaching volume he has, there's so much stuff on there. But with the Bolasaki in particular, you can actually set this up where you get an email every day. So it shows up in your inbox every morning. And I did that for years and found it so helpful because it pops up in the morning, you read it, the commentary is there, you don't have to click over to the website. So, I mean, to each their own, whatever way works best. That maybe don't want too many emails either, but this website in particular is a really great resource for all these teachings. So, well, thank you both. I know we're way over time, and my daughter's calling me now. She probably wants me to make her breakfast, so I'm gonna let everyone loose here. But thank you so much for your time, your attention, and I hope you find these practices helpful throughout the next month. And I'll see you on the next one. Inshallah, I'll see you Tuesday on the call.
Good day, everybody.
Take care.